Android and Apple mobile devices.
The Simple Truth, rising up to explore the difficult topics of real life. Join us as we proclaim the good, the true, and the beautiful with the simple truth of Jesus Christ and His holy Catholic Church through Scripture, tradition, and the Catechism. And now, your host, Jim Havens.
It is great to be back with you on The Simple Truth. We consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong heart of St. Joseph. Today is Testimony Tuesday, where we bring you real, live, first-hand testimonial accounts of the life-giving reality of Jesus and His Catholic Church. Our guest today is Joe Condit. He is a newly married Catholic husband, also founder of CatholicSpeakers.com, the largest Catholic-focused speaking agency and network in the world. Very blessed to have him here with us today to share some of his personal testimony with us. Joe Condit, thank you for being with us. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Jim. Thanks for having me on The Simple Truth. This is a real honor.
Awesome. Yeah, an honor to have you here, and very excited for it. So we always begin at the beginning, start with your childhood. What was it like in your early life, your family, the culture that you grew up in?
Well, I say two things. I always say you'll catch me only bragging about two things. I have the best friends and the best family in the world. So, growing up, I had a crazy Italian, Irish, German family. I'm actually the third oldest of 61 first cousins on my father's side and one of 30 on my mother's side. So we got to learn how to get along with people really quick, right when you come out of the womb. It was, that was the foundation of my life. My family gave me everything. We weren't from a lot of things monetarily. And I always caution people when they say, well, I came from nothing. Well, I know what people mean when they say that, but truly I came from everything. From a spiritual perspective. My mom and my dad did everything they could to provide us kids. I'm one of six, 3 boys, 3 girls, to provide us kids with the best Catholic education that we possibly could have. And, even since I can remember when I was in second grade I started serving, Catholic Mass, the Latin Mass, actually. So I was very blessed to given a very staunch Catholic upbringing, memorizing the Baltimore Catechism and writing it word for word all the way from K through, so as a freshman in high school, actually. So that was the beginning of my journey with the Catholic faith. And there was a lot in store for me after that, through high school and my college years. But in the beginning, the good Lord could not have blessed me with a better family and better role models than my mother and my father when it came to Catholicism.
What a blessing. And, share with us, I guess, where this took place as far as what part of the country was this, and also a little bit more on the culture surrounding it. So very blessed with a great family. And then when you're going to Catholic school, going to the Catholic parish, what was it like there? Was everybody plugged in like your family was? What was your experience?
It was, yes. So we grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the joke about Cincinnati is Mark Twain, I think, was the one that coined it. They asked him, if you knew the world was ending in 10 days, what would you do? And he goes, well, I would move to Cincinnati, Ohio. They're always 10 years behind the times, so he bought himself a little time. But, the culture in Cincinnati is a great place to to raise a family. There's a big Catholic culture there. The parishes we grew up in, everybody was plugged in, especially the small school that I was blessed to go to as a private school. My father, put all 6 of his kids through private school, which is a task in and of itself. And the focus of the faith was just, it was second to none. The school was called St. Gertrude. We went to Mass every single day. Right before lunch, we'd go to Mass. So that was just a start. They really tried to lead by example by showing us, how to have good practices as a Catholic. And when you're a kid, you're thinking, man, this is terrible. You just don't want to be going to Mass every day, or you lose the attention span. But now that I'm older, I'm 40 years old now, I realize looking back, they instill that in you. They instill that grace in your soul every single day, and it carries through to the rest of your life. And now I appreciate the Mass and my faith more than ever. And I believe because of that, back when I kind of resented it, not resented it in a terrible way, but, being completely honest as a kid, you'd rather be outside playing baseball or something. So, it was quite the journey, starting from, as far back as I can remember, growing up in Cincinnati, big Catholic family, your parents providing you a life where Catholicism was a focus, and building the friendships that I have around that, which was bizarre because we, in the neighborhood that we lived, it was definitely lower middle class. So the education that I got, that I could have never, gone and gotten at a school or something, from being in that culture versus the small Catholic school culture, was completely two separate worlds, completely two separate, groups of people. And, many times it was tough, growing up and learning, the complete different sides of what it's like to be spiritually, where there are unfortunately some kids that don't have the same leadership I did in my household, and they didn't have a father around or a mother around to guide them. A lot of them didn't have spiritual, guidance in my neighborhood, but then jumping right into school for 8 hours a day and going and being in that culture. So God kind of, looking back, gave me a background that is pretty unique. And I think it helped form me to have a much better understanding of myself, a much better understanding of my faith, and what it means to truly love your brother, even if they're not the exact same as you are.
Yeah, what a blessed beginning, talking here with Joe Condit. He is founder of CatholicSpeakers.com. Very refreshing to hear the start of your journey, your young life, because we don't often hear a lot of stories that begin this way. So again, very refreshing to hear it. Joe, as you got into the high school years, what was that like? What was going on in the high school years with respect to your faith and your life as you continued to move forward?
All right. Well, I wish we could stick in my grade school years, Jim, because that was my Catholic shining moments. Now we're going to start getting into the roller coaster, right? We're going up. Now we're going to start to go down a little bit. But I'm very open about it. I think it really helps at least 90% of, especially dudes. I think we all go through this phase. As I got into high school, I went to my freshman year. I stayed at that small parochial school, but realized I could throw a basketball through a hoop. So I begged my mom and dad to let me go to an all-boys school in Cincinnati, Ohio, one of the greatest high schools in the country, LaSalle High School. It's an all-boys Catholic school. In fact, side note, ESPN has deemed the 4 all-boy high schools in Cincinnati, Ohio. You got Moeller High School, St. Xavier High School, Elder High School, and LaSalle High School as the most competitive league in the country. Not for me, ESPN has deemed it, so I think we've been hanging on to that forever. But anybody that knows high school sports, you probably have heard of one of those 4 schools because it's extremely competitive. So my father, being a St. X guy, he went to St. Xavier. He allowed me to leave my small school of 12 kids in the class and go take a shot at playing basketball at LaSalle High School under one of the greatest coaches of all time, Dan Fleming. So why am I telling you all this background? Well, it was the beginning of changing my life, kind of God giving you something and you realizing that if you take his gifts and go too far, sometimes it can not be the best thing for you spiritually. Not that I became a bad kid in any way, but literally going from a class of 12 to playing on Friday nights in front of thousands and thousands of people was a wild time for me. It almost like overnight, you become a celebrity. And you're only 15, 16 years old. And I'm playing against guys that are being looked at by D1 coaches all over the country, right? So I'd look up in the stands right where we're playing basketball at our all-boys high school, and you'd see, every head coach you've heard of your whole life, D1, North Carolina, Duke, University of Cincinnati, Xavier University, Dayton. I remember once looking up playing a game where they were there to see other guys that I was playing, D1 quality guys, and just seeing some of the most famous coaches you've heard of and, kind of revered your whole life. So it was quite a culture shock in a way. And I use that term in that I could have never imagined I found myself in that position. I was technically a walk-on, as a sophomore, which people told me that unless you're Michael Jordan, there's no way you're walking on the LaSalle High School's basketball team. And that kind of gave me this sense of self, and that prior to walking on to the basketball team, I did go to school there at an I did go to school there for, months before that. Nobody knew who I was. And I knew what it was like to be picked on, treated like a nobody. And then all of a sudden, because I can throw a ball through a hoop, everybody started treating me different. Well, I swore to myself at that point that I would never, ever, to the best of my ability, someone or be uncharitable towards somebody, because I knew exactly what it felt like. You feel terrible. Side story, cut me off, Jim, if this is getting to be too much, but a lot of this has spiritual threads to it. There was one individual that for some reason, high school is a terrible time. It's just, a lot of testosterone that we never had before. Guys are finding themselves, and it makes you act, uncharitable, I would say. I guess the best way to say it. I don't want to say, act stupid, but there was a kid that was getting picked on a bunch. And I remember just walking past while some people were picking on him. And I'll come back to that story, I think. It might take a little bit longer, but I learned a lot of lessons, a lot of life lessons going to that school, going from such a small school to a big school. But not only that, becoming a pseudo known name. And what are you supposed to do with that, when that happens? And how are you supposed to act as a role model?
All right, great stuff here with Joe Condit, founder of CatholicSpeakers.com. When we get back, we're going to hear more from Joe. He'll pick it up right where he left off there. But as we go into the break, think of those the greatest commandments, right? To love God, to love our neighbor, to truly put God first, that theological virtue of charity, to love God with all that we are for his own sake, and then to love others out of love of God. If we could just live this well, continue to advance in this virtue of charity, we advance in all others as well. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
This is Jesse Romero, host of Jesus 911, heard weekdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm joined each day by a variety of co-hosts like Ruben Nava, Paul Clay, Dan Schneider, and my amazing wife, Anita Romero. We tackle Catholic devotions, spiritual warfare, family life, saving America, and everything in between. Join us each weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific for Jesus 911. You can also catch a bonus encore Saturdays at noon Eastern. God bless you. Keep the faith.
Are you holding on to an old car or truck because you think dealers won't want it? Then consider donating it to the Station of the Cross Catholic Radio Network. This is a great way to turn your unvalued vehicle into a powerful gift for Catholic radio. You'll be taking part in our evangelization efforts to continue spreading Christ's love throughout the world. Our Lord uses Catholic radio to draw more people to himself, and one of the best ways to support the Station of the Cross is by contributing to our vehicle donation program. The process is safe and simple. Your generosity will greatly benefit our mission to bring the truths of the Catholic faith to countless listeners. To find out more or to donate your vehicle today, visit thestationofthecross.com or call 1-866-628-CARS. That's thestationofthecross.com or 1-866-628-2277.
As a nonprofit lay organization financially independent from your diocese, our apostolate is listener-supported. Through your generosity, we are able to inspire countless listeners with the gospel message and help lead them to a parish to be spiritually nourished by the sacraments. The Station of the Cross thanks our supporters who have enabled us to broadcast Catholic programs for more than 20 years. Thank you for your continued support, and may God bless you and your family.
To the Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Joe Condit, who is sharing some of his personal testimony here with us on Testimony Tuesday. Joe is founder of CatholicSpeakers.com, and he was sharing with us just before the break about an experience in high school that he had. And Joe, go ahead and pick it up right where you left off.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks again for having me on, Jim. So I was talking about an experience I had, giving in to peer pressure, or just doing stuff because if you don't, you might feel like you don't look cool or you don't look, like part of the crowd. And there was this young kid that was getting picked on by these guys. And, to this day, I regret it. He knows about this now. I tell him, but I wish I would have stepped in and did something, but I didn't. I just walked away. Well, later on, I became really good friends with a guy at the school. And I went over to his house one evening because he and I were going to go out with some friends. And lo and behold, he calls his brother, and his brother comes down the stairs, and it was the very kid that was getting picked on that day. And I thought to myself, another lesson to be learned. Not only should I probably have done something, but also thank God I didn't step in and give in to peer pressure and try and act like the other guys and think it's cool by picking on somebody else, because then this young man would have walked right down the stairs, and there I am to hang out with his older brother, So there was just many stories like that as I was trying to figure out, who I was in such an early age, and making new friends, and also juggling this idea of, people starting to get to know your name, on a local level, playing at one of the all four high schools of the all four all boy high schools it's quite a thing. It's a special place. And those lessons, stayed with me through my life, and I don't forget them, because my aunt, who is my godmother, and who also is the coach for the Miami University and Ohio volleyball team, she'd always tell me, Joey, it doesn't matter how big you get in life, you got to always keep God in front, always be able to laugh at yourself. And, there's many things that she told me, like there's nothing less important than the score at halftime, kind of like not giving up type of thing, and other things. I mean, she's when you're growing up and you have a godmother that's a D1 head coach, you have no choice but to get your act together, because she's going to get your act together for you real quick when she hears you're getting out of line. So, I say all these stories to kind of give you an idea of my foundation, and even though I had such a great foundation, as we get into the college years, you'll see that I'm no saint either. Those were my high school was centered around basketball. I think that was really something that showed me hard work, dedication, camaraderie, working with others, as well as going to an all boys high school, a Catholic high school that helped continue to form my personality, form who I started becoming, my mindset, and all the things of my focus. So that would probably wrap up, kind of where I was with high school. And now I guess we'll jump toward the college years.
Sure. Yeah. So Joe, as we move into the college years, if you can help us to try to see if you can identify in some way what that struggle was, what that battle was as you're entering into your college years, the temptation, I guess, that the world is holding out versus the gospel and the call. By it, and then what was your experience of it?
Sure. I mean, college is such a crazy time, right? You're 1 minute your mom's doing your laundry for you, and you're living at your house. The next minute you're expected to be an adult overnight. Here's free money, at least at the time you think it is, and it's not. But here's money, here's a budget. Now you're gonna go live on your own. And I was like any other normal college kid leaving the house, and I ended up actually going to Miami of Ohio. For you sports nuts out there, same exact year as Ben Roethlisberger, the now former head quarterback for the Steelers. He was at Miami at the time, and it was just a wild time to be going to school there, because the school for the first time ever had just a dominant football team. But as I got into the routine and being on my own, and starting to realize what it's like to be an adult, my faith definitely was tested immediately. Now for the first time, I'm going to school, and there's girls actually in class, which was something I wasn't used to for 3 years. So there was a lot of new things that started being introduced into my life, and I started just kind of falling into the trap of becoming lazy. I started not really going to church as much as I should. And that whole kind of habit started spiraling down away from my faith. I didn't become a bad kid by any means. I wasn't doing drugs, but from a perspective of faith, I guess, what's worse, you start not going to church on Sunday, making God center. It's something that I don't wish on any college kids, because by the grace of God, I humbly tell this story because, where where I'm now trying to be as a 40-year-old man, now a husband. You try and think about the things that have formed you, and you remember those terrible times, or those times of despair during college, or those times of just giving in to what the world tells you is going to make you happy. All of the above, I fell for. And I can tell you none of it was anywhere close to what the world promises you. Go and get a great job in an office with a view, and, life will be good. And, I got focused on the wrong types of things going through school. And those things actually ended up coming to fruition for me, but in a way that I actually could have never imagined. So, wrapping up my college years, it was I didn't do anything crazy, but I just my spiritual journey just stopped, and I just kind of fell away and started just being, a guy that existed, being a good person, whatever that means when you don't have the Catholic faith as a moral compass to guide you, but and being lazy, not getting up on Sunday to go to church. And I know there are thousands and thousands, if not millions, of guys out there, whether their friends know it, their family knows it or not, they're going through the same thing right now, and they're watching this. And I can tell them what happened to me. If I had somebody like me to tell myself in college, you got to get your prayer life back. You got to make time for prayer, and surround yourself with good people. Find people that are, involved in the local Catholic groups or church group, and just have that set of friends, even if it's not your main set of friends. We all can't do this together alone. We need each other. And I think if I would have just took a couple days to try and find things like that, and also just 5 minutes a day to work on my prayer life, I wouldn't have ended up in a place where I was not making Christ the center of my life. So floated through college, you got good grades and everything, but obviously the world kind of got a hold of me at that point in my life, and our good Lord kind of fell away from my priorities slowly until you wake up one day and you think, wow, I haven't been to church, and gosh, I haven't been to church in months, So that would be kind of a overview of my college experience, at Miami of Ohio, which, by the way, is a fantastic university. I don't know how I got in, but there's a lot of smart kids that go there, so I'll take it. But that was kind of where, as my life started building, that's kind of where now we're starting to see some tough times, and am I going to come out of that or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as we get into that section, I guess first, was there any sense of discerning vocation at this time? I mean, since you were away from the faith to some degree, at least to the degree where, faithful participation in Mass on Sunday was not happening. So therefore, it would seem that you'd kind of put it to the side, and I would guess that there wouldn't really have been a discernment in terms of vocation at that point, as far as, Lord, what do you want from me as far as your plan for my life? Do you want me to be a husband and father? Do you want me to be a priest? Was that even in your thinking? What was your experience like?
It, kind of, but not really. You're young and you feel like you're going to live forever. And, I didn't even know what I wanted to be when I was in college. I was kind of riding through. I ended up doing ended up with a communications general business degree, but I just kind of fell into that mindset that, you got to get out and make $1 million and life will be good, and get that best job you can and climb the ladder. And that's kind of where my mind was at. I never really worried about what I was going to be, or I never really thought through, the most important question, which, something I've been trying to tackle in my later part of my life now, which is, what is God's will? I always had intent to do God's will, it's through my whole life, but it's a hard thing to do. St. Augustine says the most courageous thing a man can do in his life is try and do God's will. And that was just something that also fell by the wayside, especially in college. I was just looking to get good grades so I could get a great job and start making a lot of money. And I guess my journey after college, where it really started ramping up and things came to a head, which I'll share with you. that's when, God kind of stepped back into my life in hindsight in a lot of different ways. He giveth and he taketh away. And at that point, when that happened, that's when I started really thinking about, what is this life all about and why did God make me?
Awesome. All right. Yeah. So take us there. Connect the dots for us. What happened next?
So now it gets fun. Okay. So I graduate Miami of Ohio. I get a job at a Fortune 500 company, which is a fantastic company to work for, in my opinion. It was straight out of school because it disciplines the heck out of you. It's called Cintas, CINTAS. It actually was founded in Cincinnati. It's based out of Cincinnati. An amazing guy who actually became a friend of mine, turned it into what it is by the name of Richard T. Farmer. And 1 year into it, I raised money for the first company idea that I had. And that idea was where kids could bid on off-campus housing at college campuses. So never in my mind did I think I was going to be anywhere near like an entrepreneur or something, but it was just where my life headed. And at 23, 24 years old, I found myself on my own, running my own business. And it wasn't the easiest thing in the world. I actually lived out of my car, showered in YMCAs to get it started because I didn't have enough money to stay in hotels. So that's a whole other story in and of itself. This entrepreneur path, I, for some reason, was crazy enough to follow. I got to be careful about this next part. I'm going to try and, please forgive me, but I'm going to try and not say any names because what happens next is so high profile that I try and protect the people that were innocently a part of all of it. And I never try and say any names just because but if you Googled it, you could probably find it. But in about 2008, so I built the company all the way through, still not focusing on Christ. Now we're from 2004 to 2008, still not Christ being the center of my life. I wasn't a bad person by any means from like doing drugs or out, harming people, of course, but from not having a spiritual life, I would say it wasn't the best. So I was still living that life and chasing the American dream, make $1 million, all that kind of stuff. And I find myself around 2008 in a Ponzi scheme unknowingly. And trust me, if I had anything to do with it, I wouldn't be sitting here with you today. But it was actually, when it got discovered, the largest Ponzi scheme in American business history, only to be beat by Bernie Madoff 2 months later.
Wow.
So that's where we're at.
Wow, incredible. All right, we're going to be back with Joe Condit. He is founder of CatholicSpeakers.com. More from Joe when we get back. We are on holy ground as Joe is sharing some of his personal testimony with us today. And also just want to encourage folks, if there is anybody that's listening that has been away from putting Christ at the center in terms of going to Mass on Sunday, you're kind of just hit and miss with it. I just want to encourage you. This is the center, right? Love him back. Keep his commandments. Go to Mass on Sunday. Be faithful. Go back to confession. Get it right. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. November elections in Georgia are heating up. A state court Monday allowed Georgia's heartbeat abortion ban to take effect. And over the weekend, an abortion-friendly candidate for Georgia governor took a hit from PolitiFact. Stacey Abrams has claimed that new abortion restrictions, like those signed into law by incumbent Governor Brian Kemp, may also deny aid to women whose pregnancies fail. PolitiFact calls the allegations entirely false and points out that laws specifically allowing for miscarriages cannot then be said to ban such treatment. Meanwhile, Georgia's November governor's election is leaning in favor of the pro-life candidate. And another governor's race is also leaning pro-life. Texas incumbent Governor Greg Abbott leads Beto O'Rourke in polls by 10 points. This is Life News Radio. Persecution around the world has manifested itself through the centuries, but it is worse today than ever before. Aid to the Church in Need and its donors have been there to help since 1947, never abandoning the Church or her most vulnerable children. Will you stand up for your faith and accompany our brothers and sisters on their spiritual journey? Visit churchinneed.org. churchinneed.org. A British mother has demanded and received an apology after her hospital in Kent, England, denied care last February
that might have saved her premature daughter. Administrators say her daughter's death has led the hospital to implement new practices and policies. And LifeNews.com says another legacy media has racism all backwards. Media contentions that race supremacy ideals belong to pro-life groups instead ignore the racist eugenic history and modern practice of abortion in America. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here. Testimony Tuesday with our guest today, Joe Condit. He is founder of CatholicSpeakers.com, sharing some of his personal story with us today. And we're right in a pretty extreme part of the story, Joe, where you got swept into this Ponzi scheme. You said the biggest ever in the U.S. up until then, Bernie Madoff, which we've all heard about. But yeah, tell us more about this. What was that like? Does this, figure back into helping you to come back to the faith with full force? What happened next?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of people talk about that lightning strike moment where God, knocks you off your horse. I would say that this would be my closest thing to it. So we're talking again about 2008-ish. This was coming around 2007, 2008. If you remember, that's when the housing crash came to be, the mortgage crisis, all of those things, and started flushing out a lot of these folks that were playing, the money game. And unfortunately, allegedly, which is a word that I've learned to use, a business partner of mine was involved in what was, allegedly a Ponzi scheme, and it ended up being an unfortunate situation for everyone. He had over 150 business partners at that point. Had a massive conglomerate, bought major brands, major companies you and I both know, companies you see today on the shelves, invested in my little real estate idea back in 2005, 2006-ish. So in those 2 or 3 years, we grew rapidly. And, I was kind of on the fast track. And, as a young, now deemed kind of .com kid or whatever, I kind of still resent all that. But, that's my background, though. That's what I've been in since I was 23. And that's the world I've lived in. And it all came to a crashing halt when you get a call from, or at least we get a call from the FBI and CIA at the same time on your cell phone. There's nothing that's going to shake you more. Jim, it was as much as a shock if somebody came on the airwaves right now and took you away for being, one of the largest drug dealers in America or something. I'm just trying to think of something so extreme where you're just shocked, right? So without sharing all the details, it was a scheme that warranted the FBI to be investigating and people wearing secret wires for months on end. It was wild. I mean, the raid on the headquarters was something that you'd see out of a movie, like an Ocean's 11 or something when they raid the casinos, metal jackets and AK-7s, everything. I get a call from a guy, I'll never forget, Agent White, which I don't believe is the real name, but CIA, and they tell me, hey, you everything's frozen. Your bank accounts are frozen. And if you lie to us, we're going to repo a Pepsi that you bought last year. Basically telling me they were going to get so into my life that, they know everything about me already. What color underwear I was probably wearing that day. It was wild. It was just the craziest. It was like a dream. I had no idea what they were talking about because only 4 people were involved in this, what was estimated now today to be about $4.5 billion. And you can imagine back then, that's a pretty big number. And then Bernie came out with 52 billion. So, if it wasn't for Bernie, my former business partner would have probably been the household name, just like who Bernie Madoff is. And so not only was this a massive case, it was a high-profile case. I mean, we were on the front page of the Wall Street Journal for 2 weeks straight. My life just took a turn I could have never imagined again, just like my explanations about going to play basketball in high school, my little small world that I lived in, but that was huge to me, So overnight, I lost everything. Just gone. People talk about losing everything. I've lost everything, or at least I thought I did. But at that point in time, I felt like I lost everything. Forced me to move back into my house in Cincinnati, Ohio with my dad. I was traveling a ton prior to that. And guess what? It was like, almost as if God says, look, I made you, looking at me saying, hey, I made you, kid, and I had you blessed to be born in this amazing Catholic family. And I gave you all these resources and all these opportunities. And I didn't make you for this, to try and strive to be the next, whatever I was trying to do, the next Steve Jobs. Of course, I haven't lost any ambition, but my thought process is much different now, Jim, which you so keenly have guided through this conversation. Where was God there? Where was God then? Where is God, with you now? And it's a great thing for young people to remember when they see this. So I had to move back with my pops. I remember I couldn't even pay the cab driver. You're talking about a kid that was like, all these .com style magazines and, all these things. I mean, if I haven't done it forever, but if somebody Googled it, they could find a lot of the past articles about the company. And I couldn't even pay the cab driver from the airport to my father's house, So you want to talk about some humility. God giveth and taketh away. And oh, by the way, now I'm living at my dad's house. Things are not that great because a lot of things are frozen. Everything's frozen. And, you're also looking at potential jail time, which they knew that never was going to happen because they knew who was involved. They knew I wasn't involved, but a tactic to flush things out, the best they can in case they didn't know something. But I didn't know that. So I'm at my father's house for a good 8 months. And guess what I had to start doing? Pretending I was going to church on Sundays. So now I'm going to church again, because my dad's right there. I can't sleep in anymore or skip it and go to work, work all day. And started reading, picked up old books like Confessions of St. Augustine and, St. Thomas Aquinas, and started reading other books along with that, like Grinding It Out with the McDonald's story, and kind of mixing my faith back in with my life and my passions. And long story, at the end, everything ended up okay. We ended up getting everything back and we were able to go on and proceed. But, that was my lightning strike moment, as a lot of people think of it, St. Paul, or that God was kind of smacking me back and saying, hey, your free will, which you have, has taken you down a path that, I didn't. At least that's the way I make sense of all this. And it made me a man. When we were able to get back on track and everything, we got through all that, which was quite the fiasco. And, you can imagine you're 25, 26, 27 years old, staring at CIA, FBI raids and being suggested that you might be going to jail. And it was a wild experience. One of which I rarely talk about. It's actually today I didn't even know what I was going to share with you today, and this is something that's just coming out. Coming out of me talking to you, and I love doing it because it's no longer embarrassing to me. It's no longer something that I'm ashamed of. It's part of everything that made me what I believe God's given me the grace to be who I am today. As the founder of CatholicSpeakers.com and some other ventures I have going on. But it was a wild ride, and it was something that really brought that moments of that span of 1 year, going back with my father, who's one of the most dedicated Catholics you could ever meet. Him, my grandfather. I'm so lucky to carry both of their names. Seeing my mom all the time again, and not really telling anybody what was going on because I couldn't, on many reasons. But that's what brought me back to the faith. And I started going back to church. I started reading. I started praying again. And I realized, how stupid was I to be a young, dumb kid that just bought into the whole, secular college sale, the selling job they give you of, go out and get a degree and get a great job and life will be great, that kind of thing. And so it was a wild time. It was something I thank God for every day, even though it was horrible to go through back then. And I'm asking, why, God, why? And now I see why. And that whole experience has helped me form and launch me into my second career as an entrepreneur, to not only keep my passions and keep trying to build companies that solve problems with great business partners, which I do today, but also along that time, when the first company I was doing, the off-campus housing company, was going really well, is I started the Speakers Bureau, the Catholic Speakers Organization. So after the raid and the alleged Ponzi scheme, I started to focus a little bit more on the Bureau, and it's grown to something that I could have never imagined, Jim. I tell people I'm not this smart. I'm just lucky enough God works through fools, And today the Catholic Speakers Organization, CatholicSpeakers.com, has grown to be the largest Catholic network, largest Catholic focused talent agency in the world. We're well over 420 diocesan approved speakers and growing. But jumping back, that was the whole raid, losing everything, having to move back in with my father, reset my mind, reset my whole view on life. And it really made me realize how, just like that, this world, our lives, what we've built, can just vanish, just as the Bible tells us.
Yeah. Joe Condit is with us, founder of CatholicSpeakers.com. I want to get into the good work that you are doing and make sure that we can share that with folks as we go here. But I do want to drill down on this one point, because I do think this is a spot that many people can relate to, and many people maybe they're still on the front end of this, where maybe they feel sorry for different consequences that have occurred in their life based on them kind of rejecting our Lord, rejecting the faith, but maybe not yet at that point where they are truly sorry for what they've chosen to do, that rejection, that turning away, and truly entering into that humility and going to that confessional and making that good confession, which is right there and available for all of us, if only we sincerely repent and allow our Lord to wash over us with that forgiveness and refresh us in that sanctifying grace, where we can then go forward and receive the Holy Eucharist in that state of grace as we are called to. Can you share something of that moment in your life, in that process, when there really was this distinction of you really entering into this humility and you really kind of owning it and turning back to our Lord, making that good
Jim, I can see why you got such a popular show. You ask the right questions, but you say it in the right way, my friend. You're right. That is a point where every man has to put their ego aside and accept the hardships God sends them. Pain is a precursor to change. And when there's suffering in our lives, we have to embrace it. This was the lessons that my father was teaching me as I was going through this. And embracing suffering and knowing that God is allowing this to happen for a reason is because it's better for our soul. Imagine if this never happened to me. I don't know where the heck I would. I don't know. Where would I be right now? Would I be living in a private island somewhere with a private jet? And, that wouldn't be the right way to go, because I would have lost my soul potentially and not on my way to heaven. Just like I said, that stuff's going to be gone tomorrow at some point. So that moment where, I was forced with the humility factor, it's important that men recognize that and take that on as a blessing from God, and not to turn hard, which I had every temptation to do. God, why is this happening to me? Right? Why me? Why, all the hard work I've done, but everything that goes through, we trick our minds with, we lie to ourselves. And the good Lord is there for us even more in the hard times. I love that I forget the name of it right now, footprints, where you see the two sets of footprints walking and then you only see one. And the man feels like God left him. There I am by myself, and God knows, no, that's my footprints. That's when I picked you up and carried you. That was my moment when we lost, at the time we lost our venture at that point due to some things we couldn't control. And I could have turned hard, and thank God I didn't, but I could have turned angry, and by the grace of God, I didn't. And I was scared, mad, all the emotions went through me, Jim. It was a wild time, but thank God I had the grace and my father around me to say, when God sends you suffering, it's time to humble yourself and embrace that suffering, be happy in it, and go through it with him, and go through it with grace and prayer, because that's the only thing that gets you through those times. And now we'll talk about the guy that came out the other end the next day, when we come back.
Yes, looking forward to it. Joe Condit is with us, founder of CatholicSpeakers.com. And if that's you, if you can relate, if you're in that moment where you really need to turn back right now, just understand this is real. Jesus and his Catholic Church are the real deal. And the sacrament of confession, of penance, it is there for you to turn back, this sacrament of mercy, to sincerely repent and receive that forgiveness. We're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
We are helping to bring the Catholic community together through our Catholic Community Events page. You can discover the details about a community calendar event that you've heard on the air. Just click on the Events tab at thestationofthecross.com and find your local station. If your parish or Catholic organization has an upcoming event and you'd like to get the word out, you can submit it for consideration under the Events tab as well at thestationofthecross.com.
Do you love listening to the Station of the Cross on your car radio, but sometimes find yourself driving outside the listening area? Never miss another minute of your favorite show. Download the iCatholic Radio app so you can listen anywhere in the world 24 hours a day. The iCatholic Radio app is available for your phone in the Apple Store or for your Android phone in Google Play. Visit thestationofthecross.com for more information.
The Station of the Cross is listener-funded, and we value ongoing generosity. In this fast-paced world, it's easy to let your recurring donations slip due to something like a new address or a card number change. If you suspect that we do not have your up-to-date donor information, you could check with us during regular business hours at 1-877-888-6279, extension 104, or anytime online at thestationofthecross.com. Thank you.
Hello, this is Father Frank Pavone of Priests for Life. The Lord told us to take up our own cross each day. Christians venerate the cross because it is the instrument of our salvation. This means that the cross is also the instrument for ending abortion and building the culture of life. Practically, that means that it is silly to seek to escape controversy and criticism. When we plan pro-life projects, let's plan to embrace the cross. This is Father Frank Pavone, National Director of Priests for Life.
Back to the simple truth. Our guest today, Joe Condit, founder of CatholicSpeakers.com, here sharing some of his personal testimony with us today. And you can always go back and listen to the show if you're just tuning in and you missed the parts of this show leading up to now, where we're getting into some of the good fruits after conversion, after Joe's coming back to our Lord and his Catholic Church. You can always go back. You can go to iCatholic Radio, catch the podcast there, but also the website, the new website for the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. Go to thestationofthecross.com. You can find the podcast there as well as the video broadcasts as well. You can go back and check those out there, thestationofthecross.com. All right, Joe, down the stretch we come, this final segment, and we get to hear about the good fruits of when you came back. Please share with us what happened next.
Right, thank you. So after all those experiences, at the same time, my middle sister, Christina, was speaking to high schoolers as a high schooler. So I had always had this idea to, kind of be an agent. I always wanted to be an agent of some kind. So I started doing some research, and I realized there was nothing out there for Catholics. There was no bureau for Catholics, specifically for Catholics. There was no platform, especially. So 2006, I started CMG Booking, which is now CatholicSpeakers.com. And it started with my sister, who was speaking to, like I said, to high schoolers. And I wanted to give back. It was my way of trying to give back, in my mind anyway, of, for what God is humbly for what God had given me. And as I worked with Christina, and as she spoke to more and more high schoolers and more high school teens and their moms, and more people started showing up, I realized that she needed a lot of help from a contracting perspective, a scheduling perspective, all the minutia that speakers don't want to deal with. And lo and behold, little did I know that was going to end up becoming CatholicSpeakers.com. So I thought to myself, there's got to be more Christinas out there. And, so we end up now finding 400 plus of them. And I've got people in all the businesses I just got done telling you about never could I imagine that this small little concept, this Catholic concept that I started as a reaction to reality TV, equally to help my sister. But if you remember back in 2006, reality TV was getting really popular. You know, the Kardashians started really make it on stage. And trust me, I need more prayers than anybody. But when I talk about the Kardashians in that way, everyone knows what I mean. I mean, it's Hollywood taking a family and twisting the minds of the youth, just like I fell into that whole rat race in college that, you know, go buy a Ferrari, start a clothing line, and everything will be great, you know. And so I thought, man, there's got to be celebrities out there that'll go talk to kids about God. So equally next to my sister doing what she's doing, that's what then spawned the inception of CatholicSpeakers.com as it's known today. I humbly love to say that we were the first online platform to ever bring what was traditionally done by word of mouth. An organizer in Utah calling an event organizer in Ohio, asking him what speaker they had last year and if they were any good. Now we've streamlined everything. You can come to one website at CatholicSpeakers.com and page through hundreds of Catholic speakers, reading their bios, watching their videos, downloading their letters of good standing and all their certificates of education they've been through. I wanted to take and make it so easy for the world to hear the word of God through those that do it best, which is our speakers. And Jim, I was joking with you offline, you know, I tried to stay behind the scenes, but heck, every now and then, hopefully, you know, my story might help one or two people and it's worth it. But I see myself as a servant to the people that do it best. You know, our speakers that are out there, that are public figures that are talking about Christ. So that was the culmination really of all my experiences personally, to be poured into really helping others, whether it's the pitfalls I fell for or other, you know, vices that everyone struggles with something, right? We all have problems. And I wanted to create something in this world that could at least help people or give people an option to either turn to these professional speakers that have dedicated their lives to give an incredible messages about whatever topic. You know, on the website, you can search by topic or you can search by state and find out who's out there doing what and what expertise they have. And in that platform, I wanted people to find some grace, find some comfort, and know that there's other people out there just like them. You know, hopefully my story has resonated with a lot of guys. It might not be as extreme as what I went through, but you know, if you're blowing off church every Sunday or every now and then, you know, remember, look at what happened to me. And remember that God loves you and he's only going to direct you down a path that's going to be the best for your life and ultimately your salvation, not for that Ferrari you think is going to make you happy, which I fell for. So the Bureau started really kicking, I'd say, in 2016. We brought on staff members. I was able to hire people. I remember my first hire and now our COO, his name is also Joe. A lot of people know him, Joe Higgins. He works hard day in and day out to contract events and help speakers get connected with the right organizations. And thousands of organizations all over the world now trust us and call us every year to book speakers for their events because they know, you know, we've done all the rigorous screening and, you know, we're talking to people because of this little idea, Jim. It's unbelievable, really, when I think about it. I'm talking to people that I used to have their professional posters on my bedroom wall when I was a kid, right? Professional baseball players, professional NFL, you know, football players, hockey players, soccer players, NFL owners, down to movie stars, you know, and guys that you and I both know. In fact, you know, at our big national men's conference that I put on as well every year in Cincinnati, Ohio, you know, we had Jim Caviezel, the guy that played Jesus in the Passion of the Christ, and Raymond Arroyo from EWTN, next to David B. Wright, who started 40 Days for Life. I say this humbly. I mean, I'm rattling this stuff off. Even I still can't believe this has happened to me, right? Why? These people are, who am I? You know? But it's because I listened to God when he decided to grab me and make a point that sometimes we all lose our way. And it's on us in the most important time to grab onto your prayer life and recognize you're at that point, Jim. Just like you said before the break, if you're at that point right now where you might be struggling or your faith isn't a priority, this show, when you're watching Jim on The Simple Truth, this show might be your point. This might be your lightning moment to start getting back to that prayer life, you know. And if I can change one heart, Jim, then we've done it today. So I want to be vulnerable, and I wanted to share all those details with you to hopefully help people like that. I mean, that's what the Bureau is all about, is to, us to send and help send Catholic speakers into the world, many of which we work with. I saw when we were on break, your advertisements. I mean, I think I counted maybe 50% of those people we represent or have represented in the past. So, another gift from me recognizing that my life was on the right path. Now I'm sitting at a computer, fast forward to 2022 at 40 years old. And, I get to meet you, Jim. I see all these people, and these are the people God intended to be in my life, and these are the people that can continue to shape me now as a father, now as a husband. I just got married 2 months ago, and no kids yet, but maybe we'll see if God allows me to procreate. That's in the works. Of course, I've been getting the pressure from the family a lot. That's the next question, where you're barely married and they're always asking for 10 grandkids. But it's just a beautiful way to look back at all the hardship that I thought I had, but really it was the best thing for me. And it's only the best thing for us if we decide to recognize it as that. Remember, I could have gotten hard. I could have cursed at God. I could have gotten a hardened heart and, wow, you did, dare you do this to me, after all this hard work, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the big, that would be the big lesson that I came away from with that, among many other lessons. But that was such a blessing, and then here I am on your show. Never in my life would I have imagined my life would have went that way.
Outstanding. Yeah, Joe Condit, he is founder of CatholicSpeakers.com, a great resource. Check it out, CatholicSpeakers.com. Joe, thank you so much for being with us, for being vulnerable, sharing some of your story with us here today. No doubt it's going to bear some good fruit as we get it out there. So thank you so much.
God bless you.
All right, God bless you. And I do just want to finish just by saying, look at Joe's story and just understand, if you are away from the faith, or if you're not, just understand Jesus wants to share his life and his mission with us. There's a purpose, right? He wants to fill us with his life, and then he wants to send us on a mission. So understand that he's got a lot for us. Even if you're away, even if you think he can't possibly use you, he will use you. Turn back to him, let him fill you once again with new life, and then let him take control of all of your dreams and plans and direct you. We'll see you next time. God bless you.
St. Polycarp said, "Help one another